Welcome to Momentum Monday. Today is March 23rd, 2025. Howard, have you been making any money sports betting?
I'm telling you, Ivan, it's the greatest thing. I'm not a bettor. I don't like options. Have you tried? Do you have a Robinhood app?
I do, but I'm not really using it, but I have one, yeah.
So what's interesting, and just pull up the chart actually, because I was early investor. We distributed to our LPs way back in 21 at around 23, $24 a share. Uh, it was it was a mess, right? The market was, Fed was raising rates. Um, Company kind of lost some momentum. You had the GameStop controversy. I personally felt they weren't innovating on the product, right? Because as a customer, I wasn't their biggest customer. I had, like you, small amount of capital in there, and the whole vision for me was that this would disrupt, you know, Schwab. Flash forward. And for a lot of reasons, some of it just luck and market and interest rates, the market closed. So other than Interactive Brokers and Schwab, basically the whole space is wide open. And if you look at Schwab, what's the market cap? And the stock actually looks okay. Stock, the 142 billion market cap, Ivan.
Yeah.
And it's just Robinhood's to take. And then you got Interactive Brokers, which has no competition, and then Robinhood in retail, right? And then so Robinhood is probing right now. They bought an RIA firm to go after high wallet share. They're offering this 2%. You should look at this, Ivan. They're offering 2% to move money if you do so on top of your treasuries through the end of the month. Just 2%. You got to keep the money there for a few years, but it's free money, as free as money can be if you want to leave your money in Robinhood for a few years. And they are, the options is a huge success. They bought a futures firm. They bought BitGo, so they futures crypto, and they have the Gold Card, which is extremely. It was a company they bought for about 90 million, so it's extremely popular. And so go back to the monthly, Ivan. If you can see on the monthly, the stock went public in the 30s, okay, before the bear market, right? And if you believe, as I do, that it's just going to be impossible to compete, someone to go, I think they have 150 billion under management of almost 20 million accounts. And most importantly, the product's good. So it's become one of my bigger positions again in the degenerate economy index, kind of, and don't know, it's going to move with the market. As the market's pulled back, so is it, because it's not cheap, but the company's executing incredibly well and rather boldly around betting. So they bought a futures business, Ivan. Long story short, you can bet on games, and I do not bet. I don't think you bet. I almost don't even follow sports anymore. But because my son is so into sports and because we're watching the NCAA, I've placed like 20, $25 bet. Again, 500 bucks. So it's not like I'm betting 1,000, 2,000 bucks a game or 100,000 a game like Barstool, but really entertaining to see how it works. And then, you get a confirmation on the trade, you get a confirmation if you win or lose the bet, and it just deducts the money from your account. So I think they're kind of becoming the economy's Uber. Um, and DraftKings is going to be in trouble, right? Like you look at that fake out breakout in DraftKings that I got, I'm long DraftKings, but you look at that incredible breakout that kind of just right at the top and then it's giving it all back, right? So they're going to have their work cut out for them, as is Flutter. So the other stock that Robinhood gets me thinking of, Ivan, is Uber. Again, like Lyft is not a competitor. The company's cash flow is just exploding at Uber. And I think that's what you got to look at, right? So compared to like FedEx and all the other transportation stocks, Uber's hung in there very well. Obviously $150 billion market cap. But again, I look at Uber and I look at at Robinhood, and I see a lot of similarities, right? Incredible cash flow, incredible brands for 8 to 80-year-old people, and still growth companies. Like if you look at Uber, like when they hit their peak in 21, 2021, they had negative cash flow, right? And if you look at it now, they print cash. So people are going to look back at this one again. It's not cheap, but this is a 500 to $1 trillion company. And I think the other thing that, and then I'll let you go, Ivan, is as we see this pullback in Tesla and everybody like taking sides, I just don't know why people have to take a side here, right? Incredible company, but not a growth business right now. And it's not a cheap, if you want to tell yourself that it's a robotics company, um, great, but it's an $800 billion robotics company, right? With declining sales in their Teslas and a ton of competition, including now in China with BYD. So, I think this market is telling you that you got to be really careful in the crowded company and really start thinking about who's going to come out of this next, kind of like consolidation as winners. So I see Robinhood and Uber kind of stepping up. I see Tesla falling into the pack. And I think you'll see the Magnificent Seven is kind of under pressure, Ivan.
Yeah, most of them, I mean, all of them, I think are
That's pretty much everything I wanted to talk about today.
down for the year. I mean, Facebook, Meta, they found some support near the 200 days. So it's the one that is
As they
holding
should, right? Like they needed to.
the best. And there's definitely be a rotation out of those
Yeah.
top seven big tech companies into other spaces. We've talked about the outperformance in European and in Chinese stocks
Yeah.
year to date, but also since the elections.
Yeah.
And yes, you're going to see pullback to their, 20, even to their 50, the rising 50-day moving average, but they are outperforming
But
significantly
you were
for,
talking, the other thing I would tell people, because we've been talking about international stocks, like, unless you're a really good trader and are accounting, and trading these ETFs, if you're going to go buy international stocks, you got to also account for currency risk. So I also think a lot of this is overblown. And, unless the dollar really starts getting into trouble, and then all bets are off, I still think 99% of Americans should be focused on American stocks, right? And the other thing I would say, if you told me the Magnificent Seven would pull back 20 to 30%, including Tesla at 50%, and the S&P would be, what, 7% off all-time highs, I wouldn't have believed you. So I think the S&P either catches up to the Mag 7 or the Mag 7 is due for a good bounce.
yeah, I mean, Mag 7 is down 20%.
20%. So if you told me the Mag 7 in January would be down 20% on the year, and that,
And the S&P is down 8, basically, from its all-time highs. So,
I
yeah.
mean, just doing its job. Financials are doing fine. And
I mean,
so,
healthcare has been one of
but
the
not
strongest.
great. It's very selective, and it's very select.
10%.
You got to really, because it's just a complicated business. Not everybody in healthcare, right? I think some of the what do you call them? The makers of like instruments, medical instruments. I forget, IHI, maybe?
Yeah, yeah,
IHI.
I try, yeah.
Even then, like, it's very, I think, Medtronic had a good looking chart. Again, pacemaker business, kind of been going sideways for a decade. So again, it's just I'm trying to find themes.
Well, most stocks fall during corrections, and I mean, the only two fields that kind of have held are European and Chinese stocks, and
No, no, no,
obviously,
no. Ivan, look at CME, CBOE, ICE.
yeah, I mean, these are like, yeah, they're near all-time highs. Obviously, when you have rising volatility, they always
No, Ivan, go look at the weekly, go look at CBOE.
these are
These are
weekly.
new. I mean, again, they're rather boring, but the amount of volume, like think about Robinhood with futures, everybody's gonna have to copy them and offer betting, some kind of betting, right? And these are the true degenerate, these are the highways of this next, you combine all this free time with Gen Z and millennials and all this money being passed down to them. And you really have to start thinking about, it doesn't matter what they do with the borders, and it doesn't matter, of course it does, sorry, but in terms of like the kids and their free time and money and people getting their money handed down to them from the next generation, this is all going to go into free time activity. That's why I'm like Hood, interact with brokers, Uber, these things that are part of intertwined with with these brands, with this generation. And I think crypto as well at some point. DoorDash is another company I own, Ivan. I mean, again, I don't use it. I use Uber. Do you use DoorDash?
I haven't used it really
But here you go
yet.
again. Look at it's very much similar to the Robinhood chart, right? Came public at an incredibly high valuation, negative cash flow, and now here we are 4 years later, not cheap, but again, these are signaling something. If you go look at Airbnb or Lyft, Airbnb is still not even close to where it was trading at the all-time high. Some of these original Web 2 leaders. Coinbase not trading anywhere near its, well, a little better than the other ones. So I think some of these Web 2 companies that are getting through this are going to be massive companies. The other thing that I noticed was gaming. Take-Two, just about to break out. Someone showed me. I mean, go to the weekly or monthly.
Yeah.
I don't game, but like, wow, they must have a massive winner coming because look at the earning that they're showing. They must have like a new game or something that's on fire.
Yeah. I mean, their growth is not that impressive in the past 4 years. So
Well, the
yeah,
stock's gone nowhere for 4 years, Ivan. So the question is there something going on?
yeah, I'm not really following them that close. So maybe there is in the market is
Look at that
buying
setup, Ivan.
in anticipation. Yes, but in a corrections market, you don't buy breakouts to new 52-week highs because you get
Yeah.
shaken
No,
out.
it's just I'm
Yeah.
changing my watch list, and that's now on my watch list. SEC games out of Asia, which have been long for a while, and the Degenerate Index has
Yeah.
had a huge, huge run, off the bottoms.
Yeah, big recovery. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So sorry, I keep interrupting you. So how are you playing it? I think, like you said, in a tough market, you don't buy breakouts. You kind of just
Yeah, I
swing.
mean, I think there is a good chance for a short-term bounce, and we saw that bounce kind of in the past couple of weeks. If you look on the weekly charts, there would be a sell-off earlier in the week, but then stock would finish near the high of the range. So we had, two back-to-back weeks with those, you can call them bullish reversal candles, but
Yeah.
only if there is a follow-through. So we still need to follow through.
Yeah.
And so I still think we're in correction market, but just given this price action here, these reversals, and also the bullish seasonality, I think there is a more than 50% chance that we might see a bounce next week or maybe in the next 3 weeks
Right.
towards the 50-day moving average, where and after that it will kind of depends on the White House policy on tariffs because many people didn't believe it, but it seems like the White House is serious about them, and they could have serious influence on the economic growth. And as we saw last week, the Fed didn't change interest rates, and they did mention tariffs that they could increase inflation expectations by a few basis points, but no one really knows by how much. But that's really one of the reasons for them to keep the rates where they are and to only project 50 basis points price cut for the entire year. So it seems like the Fed is not really going to act and cut rates unless there is a clear proof that the economy has slowed down significantly. So it means that it will be too late, their reaction. So on Friday, I bought a couple of stocks just because I've been heavy cash during that correction, and I saw enough evidence that, I should have some exposure. So I just, opened some small positions in stocks that have held well. I mean, this one is a bit, I don't even know why it's up and why is it acting so well. Compass, it's a real estate play. And I know that recently there was an acquisition in the space, like Redfin was acquired. And maybe there's just a lot more listings now out in the market as interest rates have pulled back, and those companies are expected to make more money. But this is one of the stocks that have held relatively well. So I bought a little bit on Friday, and there is another one that is just held well during the correction above the 50-day, and now it's just trying to break out above 100. So I just bought some testing positions just to see where they go, and if the market follows through, I'll probably add more. And
Wow, what is this GenDX? Like that's super interesting. What's the market cap? So it's
2.9 billion.
so
So
small.
it's a small.
Can you give me a weekly and a monthly there, Ed?
Yeah, I mean it's been very volatile. It
Wow,
went all
what
the
a
way to
move.
one,
Into 100. What
and
was
now
that
to
like some kind of
100.
reverse split?
No,
Congrats. Like there's been
there's a huge crash, after the in 2022 market. Like many
holy
stock went down. Many
smoke.
stock went down 95%, including App, which was
Yeah.
the best performer in the past 2 years. They also had a 90% drop in
Yeah.
2022. And now and then after that, they went up 50 times in
Yeah, I missed
20.
that. And as a customer, I'm kicking myself because when I took back over StockTwits in
So either
24.
way, I'm just testing the water to see how things play out. And obviously, I mean, last week, I've played some of the Chinese stocks, but short term because I know that they were extended and the market in general hasn't been trending for more than a day or two in either direction. So I played some Baidu calls here that I closed. I also played some that so-called Chinese Robinhood Tiger. I bought some calls
Yeah,
on that.
Futu is like an interesting
Yeah,
company.
Futu on that breakout here after because they crushed earnings. And Futu
Yeah.
that is looking even better. I mean, now it pulled back to the 50 days. So let's see if it builds a new base, and if it goes back above 120, it could be in play. Look at the weekly here.
Yeah.
And so actually, if you look at if you buy only momentum stocks, like stocks that are like up more than 50% in the past year, they're trading above their 50-day moving average, which is above the 200-day. If you take a look at that list, it's mostly Chinese stocks. I'm not saying go buy them, but I'm just saying,
Yeah.
this is the stock that are currently have been holding the best. This is Tencent Music, the Chinese
Huh. Just like the
Spotify.
Spotify. But give me a weekly.
It's kind of setting
Wow.
up. I mean, if it
Yeah.
breaks out above
That's
six
it. Yeah, that's interesting. What's the ticker?
TME.
Yeah.
TME, full disclosure, I own some calls for April that I bought
I'm adding that to my watch list. Thanks.
recently.
It's
And by
only
the
a
way,
$10 billion
Spotify,
company. That sounds wrong, but okay. That's interesting.
22 billion. Yeah, why not? Spotify,
Yeah.
it's
My
a
watch list
hundred
is completely
sports.
My watch list is completely flipped around. The other one I'm watching in my Degen index, I added some Reddit. I don't think it's like a home run idea right
Yeah,
now.
big pullback in Reddit. They're down, what, 50%
Yeah, a
from their
lot of it is
all-time
just
highs.
a lot of that boom was based on I know this business because of StockTwits and they're kind of the leader. And a lot of that boom was AI and them selling their data to Google and OpenAI. And now there's questions. And I don't know what they're going to do.
Yeah.
I don't know what we would do if Google came and offered us, 5 million bucks a year for our data or Goldman Sachs. I don't know what we would do. It's anonymized, but the question is that was kind of the boom, right? And I don't think it's over. So that's one that I've recently I've
Yeah,
been
they're
trading.
profitable. They're growing,
Well, and
pretty fast.
in
Yeah.
a world of AI, they have millions of people, just kind of any company that's got um again, the Google search deal is important, so I don't know, but people really use Reddit a lot. The other one that is now in my DGen list is Dutch Brothers BROS. Trade. If you follow me on StockTwits, I've been trading these. We've had a good bounce here. It's two huge breakouts, right, over the last 6 months. But then just, every time I drive by a Dutch Brothers, Ivan, no matter what time, late at night, there's people fucking drinking coffee. I don't
Yeah,
understand. Like
there
they
is a
should.
quote. I mean, I've never been to one, but I've listened to
Unbelievable.
people who,
You can only drive through. I don't get it.
yeah,
But again, if you look at the earnings, right, and you look at the two big earnings breakouts, and now we filled that gap. So I just think, where your stops are. This one is interesting to me. It's kind of bounced already, but
yeah. I mean,
uh,
to probably chop here as it builds a new base, so
yeah,
that
but
you don't need to rush.
this is going to be a big company. Now, it already is. What's the market cap? 10 billion.
10
Where
billion.
Starbucks' market cap?
Wow, Starbucks is a different animal, but
I
it's
understand, Ivan,
110.
but it tells you what the market can be, right? Starbucks is going nowhere. Product stinks. It's expensive, and I know they're everywhere.
Isn't Dutch Brothers expensive too? I mean, I don't know.
They're all expensive, Ivan, because they're sugar. But what I'm saying is, when you have a brand that's cool, there's so much room to grow in retail, right? And Dutch Brothers is quietly building a name. So I'm saying I'm looking. Caffeine is one of those spaces in coffee that I want to be in, and sugar. And Dutch Brothers is kind of one of those leaders. So I watch the stores, and they're always busy in Phoenix.
Yeah, I mean, they
Uh,
have a low float, so that's a pretty good
yeah, it's
foundation for.
volatile. Okay, so that's another one. Reddit. What else could I share with you? Take Two, I shared with you. I'm trying to think what else. Yeah, that's enough. All right, everybody. I'm on the road this week, Ivan. Thanks for
All right, Howard, thank you. See you next
see
week.
everybody.